Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Stellar Cycles podcast, your hot girl database for all the things that we wish we were taught but get to learn together now. Everything pertaining to your femininity, your cycle and wellness, and your walk in life as a woman. I'm your host, Alina, and today we are talking about a thing called hypothalamic amenorrhea, which can also be translated to the absence of a period. The goal of today's episode is for us to all gain a better understanding behind why a woman can sometimes lose her period. Today's guest, Anna, comes from a pretty deep medical background herself, so not only is she going to share with us her personal story of having missed her period for 6 years, she's also going to give us more clarity on the mechanisms behind why this happens and what's actually going on in the body to allow for a missing period. Just going to give you guys a couple of updates. We had a pretty big weekend. We were hosting some friends, literally had people over 3 days in a row, here till late, hanging out, and it was a lot of fun. On Saturday evening, we went to this 70s party called the Mustache Bash. I would say the most interesting part of it was just sitting back and just watching people parade by in their outfits. Everyone got so creative, and yeah, it definitely took me back to the 70s decade for a moment there, which I don't get into that much into the retro stuff, but it was fun. It was fun. We got to see friends. Everyone had a good time. Everyone was a vibe. So this week, I don't know about you guys, but this whole entire past week, I just have felt kind of out of commission. Monday was just spring cleaning day. We finally had the gathering. Let me now just wipe every inch of the house. So I did that Monday. And then just over this past week, I've been resting. So it's time to get back into it. It's time to get to crushing again. I'm really excited to tackle the next 3 months and see where the 12 straight week of hard work gets me. I'm just excited to see where I'm going to be at in June. So yeah, let's get into today's episode. Our guest is Anna Herberger. She is a surgical oncology physician's assistant at UCSD Health. Originating from the East Coast to New York, Anna was drawn to San Diego by the beauty and climate and all that the city offers in terms of the health and wellness scene. Anna loves fitness and food, and she loves what she does for work in the setting of cancer care. Today, we welcome Anna to the show to talk to us about the time in her life where she lost her period for 6 years and the hurdles that she had to identify and overcome to get back her cycle. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks, Alina. We met about a year ago, I think it has been. And when we met at book club, you mentioned that you had this podcast called Stellar Cycles. And it was right around the time that I was starting to learn about my missing period and period recovery. And I was kind of already a few months into the process, and I knew that I wanted to, be on your podcast. I was really inspired by you. So I can't believe that we're here today to film a podcast. I'm super excited to be here. So I hope that, by sharing my story and maybe talking a little bit about the root cause as to why my period went missing, I can help to inspire other women who may be going through not just a missing period, but also irregular cycles or maybe some sort of hormone imbalance that might be isolating, especially if you're not getting those answers from the doctors.
Yeah, I think this is so incredible because not only are you a medical professional, you work, for doctors. You're basically like the in-between between a nurse and a doctor, right? And on top of that, you've just done so much of your own research and had your own situation that I think you can really speak to this and really help other people who are going through the same thing, because it's a lot more common than we would even expect.
Exactly. Yes. And I do want to highlight, if you're going through a healing journey, just know that you're not alone. There's probably some other women or people out there that are also struggling with something very similar. And so I hope that my story can help to inspire you.
Yeah. So what we're going to touch on today with Anna is what led her to lose her period in the first place, the journey to her recovery and what she learned in the process. And also we're going to touch on some of those effects of chronic stress on thyroid and sex hormones, things like body image, self-identity, and also, like we always talk about on this show, masculine versus feminine energy. So I always like to ask my guests to start off, what was it like when you started your period? Were you prepared? Were you not prepared? Was it bad from the start, or how did it go for you?
Yeah. So my period started when I was in middle school. I think I was around 12 or 13. That age, I used to have really heavy periods or, I'd be using feminine products every hour. Like it was almost to a point where they were almost unbearable. Like I would have really heavy periods, painful. In high school, oftentimes I was on the swim team. I would have to skip practice because of, my cramps were just too painful. And around that time, I was, dealing with acne, and I knew that this wasn't normal. I had a lot of friends that went on the birth control pill in high school. It was like maybe my first year of college when I went to the gynecologist, and, she decided to put me on birth control. So that's kind of how, that went.
What led you to choosing that path in school, like wanting to be a physician's assistant?
I've always been fascinated by science and human body and anatomy and physiology. Just the study of how the body functions is just something that has always piqued my interest in high school. And in high school, one of my very close family members passed away, and he was in the hospital for about a week before he passed. So during that time, I was surrounded by nurses, doctors, physician assistants, primarily his care team, who took amazing care of him. And that really inspired me to want to help other people, other patients and their families during a difficult time in their life. So I applied to different physician assistant schools, and also I was thinking about going to nursing school, but I got into a 5-year didactic program at Gannon. And
that's very impressive.
Yeah. So I was out of school by 22, and I started my first job around that time as well.
Wow.
And I loved how physician assistants, they have a lot of autonomy, and you're very independent in your practice, yet you do have that comfort of having a supervising physician there, and you can also switch around specialties. So I went from starting off in the emergency room to what I am doing now in oncology.
Yeah. And oncology, just so I'm getting it right, that's everything to do with cancer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I work with cancer patients.
Really tough field for sure, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But it's very rewarding at the end of the day. I know that I'm helping people through a really difficult time in their life. And that's kind of the reason why I love to wake up and do what I do every day.
That's awesome. I'm so grateful that you have, such a drive for what you do. And you found it so young too, like a lot of people, they go through multiple career changes.
Yeah.
You're getting to do really what you love.
I'm really fortunate for that. Like, I feel like I have my career, and I was able to also live a good portion of my 20s outside of school and with a job already. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome. Well, you're killing it, girl. You're doing really amazing. Yeah. So our main topic today is what we call amenorrhea. So that's the medical term for the absence of a period. And this happens for a variety of reasons. It happens to a lot of different people. I even had some friends in high school too who, and at early college, that they were very fitness oriented, right? And they were training super, super hard. And it was normal for them to be like, oh yeah, I just stopped getting my period. But it didn't seem to concern them that much, right? So I just want to ask you, where does your history of missing your period begin? Like, what age were you? Kind of set the scene for us.
Yeah, it's a great question. This is honestly a question that I've been trying to think about and understand, because there was a huge gray area for me, especially when I was on hormonal birth control. And I was taking an oral contraceptive pill ever since I was 19. And when I was 21, I developed, an orthorexic eating disorder. So I did drop a significant amount of weight in a short period of time, just from over-exercising and under-fueling. So not eating enough calories to support a healthy menstrual cycle.
Or all the exertion that you were doing.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. My body was basically in a fight or flight mode. And I can get into that in a little bit. So I'm not exactly sure when I lost my period because I was on birth control, but I know it was missing for several years. And I can say it's been at least 6 years of missing a period for me. And maybe I would have periods of spotting every month, but it was never really a regular period.
Did this concern you at all, or were you excited to not have a period?
At this point, it was like the least of my concerns. Unfortunately, I did not understand the extreme health consequences of not having a period during the time. And, by my doctors, they're just like, well, when it's time to get pregnant, just let us know and we can help you with fertility treatments. And, that wasn't even really brought to my attention until more recently. But essentially, they just said to stay on the pill, and they were encouraging me to gain some weight. So that's exactly what I did. I did gain some weight back. I did find help during that time, and I was able to get myself back to a normal weight, but I was still restricted by extreme. This is kind of hard to explain for me, but during this time, I was able to gain some more weight back, but I was still struggling with the need for continuous exercise and extreme calorie restriction and a need for control in my life. So I was basically living a very oriented and masculine life, and I felt controlled by the need to stay small in my body. And I was not embracing my feminine at all. So it wasn't until I moved to San Diego about 2.5 years ago. Around that time, I went off the hormonal birth control. There was just a decision that I wanted to make. And I did not get a period after going off birth control. If anything, my anxiety got worse. And I didn't really make the connection with my anxiety, irritability, impatient personality. That's just the mental when I thought part of it. Exactly. That's just how I thought I was. The only thing I was really going to see a doctor for was my anxiety. And at that time, it was really debilitating. I attributed some of it to moving to San Diego, but it was really kind of taking over my life. I would wake up every morning with really bad anxiety. And another sign that I probably should have listened more to was the fact that my hair was starting to fall out and it was starting to thin and I didn't grow. And although I had the body that I wanted, my hair was my biggest insecurity. And so I went down,
which is really tough for a woman.
It's really tough for a woman, to be losing your hair and not really have any answers as to why.
Just so I'm understanding, so your lifestyle, like you were saying, when around the time that your period went missing, it sounds like you were really busy. You were really in your masculine energy. You were like very much a go-getter. Were you still the president of your sorority at school?
Yeah, that was for about a year. And then I realized it was too much on me. So I was definitely a type A personality from the beginning. And it was a sense of like a need for control over something. And I became very disciplined with my fitness and my health. And I almost felt like that was a part of who I was. Like it became a part of my identity. And I didn't know how to change that.
Can I ask you kind of a deep question? You don't have to answer it if you don't. Sorry. But where do you think this need for control stemmed from? Because I think we all have that in one sense or another, right? But maybe where in your life did you feel like you didn't have control, so you were seeking for it in like fitness and regimen?
Yeah, that's a really good topic. It probably has to do with like the need to please others, honestly. I was never really I'd say that I was like this to myself, but I think it was honestly the need to please other people. But we can touch on that.
Yes, we will return to that for sure. So now you're living in San Diego. You went off of the birth control pill, right? You're experiencing anxiety. And I'm just wondering, what kind of steps did you begin to take to try to figure out what was happening with you? And what kind of frustrations were you running into?
Yeah, of course. It was around the time when I first met my gynecologist here, a new gynecologist in San Diego. I was just there for a routine screening. And he was like, so when was your last period? And I was like, well, I haven't had one for like a very long time. And he's like, well, this is not normal. Let's investigate further. Let's draw some labs. So I'm very grateful for this doctor that came into my life when he did, because he did not take this as something that was normal and was just like, oh, just continue birth control or just go back on the pill.
Which is so rare to happen.
It is very rare. He told me to go on a patch, so it wasn't that much better than the pill.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't want to take that as a solution to my issue. He drew labs, and my estrogen and progesterone were essentially flatlined, like a postmenopausal woman. And that inspired me to just do a ton of research on what hypothalamic amenorrhea was. I left with that diagnosis. And we did a ton of other testing to make sure I didn't have PCOS, any other cause for a missing period. I knew my history, so I knew that what I had to do to change. I just needed the support and the guidance to go through that. And I knew I wasn't going to get it at that doctor's appointment. I needed to seek alternative means. So I started to dive into podcasts while I was at the gym.
Which is the number one resource for you guys. If you, like, let's say you don't have the money to go to a doctor yet, or you're working on getting your insurance, like, podcasts will give you so much information. It'll be like you're having a one-on-one with that doctor.
Exactly. Right. So when I heard the term hypothalamic amenorrhea, that's a long word. Essentially, hypothalamic amenorrhea, the hypothalamus is this master gland in your brain that is a control center for secreting, producing, inhibiting, and releasing hormones that target your pituitary, which is another gland in your brain that sends hormones to target organs in your body, such as your adrenals, your thyroid, your ovaries. There's so many different target organs that these hormones have an effect on. Your endocrine system is such an important part of your body. Very complex. Your body has hundreds of hormones, and these hormones essentially can control so many different aspects of your life, like digestion, mood, sleep, immunity, sleep regulation.
So they all like interplay with each other, right?
Exactly.
So when you're going on the pill or something that suppresses your natural hormones, it's not just going to affect your reproductive organs, it's going to affect all of your organs.
Exactly. So if one hormone is off balance, such as cortisol, which cortisol often gets a bad rap. Everyone's like, oh, like reduce cortisol. Cortisol is essential for life. Like essentially, if you have a stressing situation, cortisol helps your body survive. But it's when we have these elevated cortisol levels every day, chronic stress wreaks havoc on your hormone health. It can start to suppress your thyroid. It can start to suppress your sex hormones. And sometimes this results in symptoms that can be vague and dismissed by doctors, and it can be very isolating. And so some of these symptoms that can develop from this high cortisol, suppressed sex hormones, suppressed thyroid, can be anything between like fatigue, hair loss, hair thinning, acne, brain fog, insomnia, weight gain, weight loss.
Are these manifestations of what your body considers to be burnout?
Exactly. Yeah. At a point, your body starts to burn out. And it's like, I can't do this any longer. And, we can either listen to our body or we can start to fight it. And what I was doing, I was fighting my body for several years. Unfortunately, I didn't start to listen to my body sooner. But we can't go back in the past. We can only move forward.
Absolutely. So as you were now trying to figure out what was going on with you, was there anything that was frustrating you, or were you just really kind of stacking up on the tools to start helping you? And what kind of tools did you have in your arsenal as you worked to get your period back? So you mentioned podcasts. What else were you starting to do differently?
Yeah, exactly. So I started to dive into podcasts, period recovery podcasts, or podcasts on hypothalamic amenorrhea. And what I've learned is that I needed to start to rest more and focus on eating more.
Which is so the opposite of what you've been doing for years.
Yeah. Well, I did get sucked into the diet culture. And once you're in it, it's really hard to get it out of your head. So going against diet culture in today's society, I'd say is a pretty tough thing to do. When everyone is losing weight and, eating
keto or not keto or vegan.
Exactly. Intermittent fasting and waking up early and getting your workout in. It's really hard to go against that in order to get your health back in order. So I knew I was going to need support, but I wasn't going to get support from the general population. I sought out a health coach who was really experienced in getting women recovering their periods from overexercising and undernourishing. So I started working with her, honestly, pretty much right away.
And what's her name, if you can share?
Her name is Danny Sheriff. She's from the HA Society.
Okay.
She's been wonderful. I would highly recommend knowing the root cause to your regular missing period and working with a practitioner who can give you the step-by-step instructions and
that is tailored to you.
Tailored to me, an individualized approach, and also just that reassurance that what you're doing is the right way, is the right thing, and following with you and being there every step of the way, whether through email support and just check-ins every once in a while was really what I needed.
That's amazing. I also want to ask you, this the first thing you said is that you really needed to learn how to rest. So how did that look like in your really busy life as a PA?
Yeah, right. So every morning I used to go to the gym every day and lift and do some sort of activity, something active where I got my body moving. So I needed to scale this. I knew I needed to scale this back somewhat. So I started to give myself more rest days and be comfortable with just waking up and just going on with my day without doing something active. So anything between walking, I started going on more walks.
We love hot girl walks.
Hot girl walks became the best thing ever. I love my walks every day. Just getting outside, getting fresh air, sunshine on my face, and moving my body in a very healthy and restorative way. I also picked up yoga and I started to do Pilates, but at that time, I just took a complete break from exercise, honestly, just walking and yoga.
Yeah, because Pilates can be intense in a different way than weight training is. It definitely is not as strenuous, but it can also be a stress to the body, but a good stress, right?
Yeah.
For different muscle groups. I also want to know, how did your eating change? And did they put you, this doctor that you were now working with, she's more holistic, I'm guessing. What kind of supplements or kind of things did she add into your life to kind of help boost you?
So what I learned from working with this health coach was that my nutrients were very depleted. So the birth control pill can cause nutrient deficiencies. And some of these you're just not aware of that. I eat healthy, I eat organic. But if you're not eating enough and of the right foods, then you can definitely be having nutrient deficiencies. So I recommend testing. Don't test, don't guess. So we did a comprehensive hair mineral analysis testing, and she started me off on a beef liver supplement, which is focused on B vitamins and magnesium, iron, all these nutrients that the pill was previously depleting me from. And I focused on just eating more. Like, I was eating, good foods, but I started incorporating more animal protein and actually like higher fat dairy. So before I was eating very low fat and like not that protein heavy, I started eating more carbs and then focused more on animal products. So that really helped.
All that sounds super great. Like what we're now, a lot of doctors and a lot of people on podcasts are in the wellness space, in the bioactive space. They're now talking about like, no, we actually really need these nutrients. It's just the source of where you get them. That's what matters, right? You should be having a balance. And of course, everything works differently for everybody. I know for some people, carnivore diet can work really well. For another person, that won't work at all. But I do think at the end of the day, you should just have a balanced meal with both veggies, plant products, animal products, if that's something that you eat. But it's like the sourcing that matters, where it comes from.
Yeah. And also, what was the biggest challenge for me during this time was like realizing I wasn't eating enough. She helped me understand that I needed to eat every few hours and a significant amount more calories than I thought was even possible for me to eat. And this was hard for me to understand, but I mean, just going back to just understanding that my body was in this starvation mode for years. It just wasn't getting the nutrients it needed to sustain a reproductive menstrual cycle. My body essentially shut down that non-essential functions, and it needed to know that it was safe to that again.
Exactly. Because like I think at the root of our cycle, right, like biology wants us to get pregnant, right? And if your body doesn't feel safe to get pregnant, you will probably like lose your ovulation, lose your cycle. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to touch on is during this time, every day was very similar to me. Like for me, I felt like every day I was living in the same routine because my hormones were so off balance, so low. I didn't have that cyclical pattern that women are supposed to have. So that was something that was just so foreign to me and was probably a huge reason of why I had so much anxiety built up.
And I bet that's how men feel every day, but they're equipped to feel that way because that's how their hormones work. Every single day, day after day, month after month, year after year, their hormones are pretty much doing the same thing every day. And like, I look at my husband, right? And I'm like, you do the same literal thing every single day. And you just do it wonderfully and you don't get tired of it. And that's just, that what you're in. But if that was me, it would drive me nuts. We as women, we get to have variety. Like I had my other podcast episode about 1 month, 4 personalities. We do get to go through 4 phases and feel different things and be able to attend to different parts of our lives. I wanted to also ask you, because you said that your identity was tied up so much in how you looked and being smaller. So as you were going through, you're incorporating a lot of physically different things like resting more, going on hot girl walks, changing how you eat. But how did you work on your identity and learning to accept that even if you do look different, it's better for your health? And did that help your anxiety, depression, all those other things?
It's a really good topic. We're going to dive right in. This was one of the hardest parts of period recovery, was realizing that I was no longer going to be that fit girl. Like I needed to change who I was in order to get my health back. So I had to, be comfortable getting uncomfortable. My clothes started to not fit me anymore. And getting out of bed sometimes was difficult because my whole routine was changed now. But I stayed pretty consistent, at least for a few months towards the beginning, because I knew I was on the right path. And how I knew that was I started to feel better. My anxiety started to go away. That was the first sign that things were starting to get better, was my anxiety was actually improving as my body was changing. So as my estrogen levels were starting to go up, I started to also actually produce what we like to call cervical mucus, which I was dry for years.
Wow.
So the first sign of that was like, oh my God, this is working.
Wow.
So that helped me push past the fear of weight gain. For me, it's like, wow, I'm starting to get my femininity back. This is exciting.
Yeah.
And estrogen scary at the same time.
Yes. And estrogen is responsible for a lot of like the things that do make us female, like our breasts, our cervical mucus, along with many other things, of course. But continue on.
Yes. So during this time, I realized a health coach, she was absolutely wonderful, but there were other issues going on. My thyroid was also so low, and it was causing me significant symptoms that I needed to be addressed.
Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of thyroid health for women? Because when I was working in ultrasound, I was starting to see younger and younger and younger women coming in with thyroid issues.
Exactly. I think it's so important to find a practitioner who dives in and looks at you as a whole human. Everything is interconnected. And for a while, my TSH was just being checked, and my TSH was normal.
Oh, and real quick, and because we're in the medical field and we know what all this stuff means, but for people who don't know, what is the thyroid responsible for?
So the thyroid is this gland. It sits like kind of in your neck area, and it's responsible for the body's metabolism. So your digestion, your mood, your just the way that your body functions. It's just such an important organ.
Does it have something to do with hair too?
Yeah. So basically, if your thyroid hormone is suppressed, then it can shut down non-essential functions. So it slows down your digestion. So if you have low thyroid hormone, it can shut down your digestion. It can start to slow things down, the motility. It can cause suppression of your sex hormones, your body temperature. It can slow your hair growth. And then on the reverse, hyperthyroid, so if your metabolism is working in overdrive, it can have the reverse symptoms as well. So my TSH, which is the stimulating hormone, which is produced by your pituitary gland, that was normal. So my pituitary was essentially working normal, but my T4 and T3 were actually low, and these weren't being tested right away. So when I found out that those were low, I knew I needed to address that as well. But it's something that I'm still struggling with, honestly, to this point. It's not an easy solution. It takes a lot of time and consistency, and working with an experienced holistic doctor can be really helpful with understanding the root cause as to why you're having those hormone imbalances.
I've always been a very strong believer that our body is able to heal itself faster than how long it takes it to get messed up, right? But I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that since your body was in a survival mode for such a long time physically, just because of what you were pushing yourself to do for years and years at a time, that probably the thyroid would take a little bit of time to recalibrate. Definitely not as long as, how long it took for things to get bad, but it also doesn't happen instantly.
Exactly. And I'd say that changing your lifestyle and changing your diet, being consistent over time, can really help with healing yourself, with healing your body, healing your hormones. What I've learned is that your gut health plays a really important role in also your hormone health. Thyroid conversion of T4 to active T3 of what the body can actually utilize for your metabolism, for your energy stores, is it happens in the gut. So if there's not enough nutrients there, if there's a lot of inflammation for whatever reason, there's environmental toxins, it can really play a role in that. So
I see. So did you end up getting your period back, and how did that feel?
Yes. So after about 15 months of patience and consistency, I did end up getting my first recovery period in January. So just a couple months ago. And that was I had to say, one of the most exciting and exhilarating days of my life.
It's like all your hard work, like it went towards
Exactly.
something.
This past 15 months was just really dedicated towards me and focusing on my recovery. And I knew my body was capable of having another bleed. It was just very uncertain as to when that would be.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say this entire journey has been really humbling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not have been able to do it without, the support from my family and friends. And also just knowing that my body is capable of doing it again.
100%. There has to be, along with all the physical stuff that you're doing, there also has to be that core belief, right? Like the psycho-cybernetics of it all. Were you there when we read that book?
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
So, there is something to do with the mental and spiritual aspect of it, right? That you believe that your body can, and then it will support you in that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, along this journey, I did turn more inward. I did become more spiritual and start to actually focus more on myself. And I started to do acupuncture, and I started working with a Chinese herbalist as well. And through that, I've learned the power of healing.
I would imagine you had to relinquish some of that need to control.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely did.
For sure. Mm-hmm. And then I think you mentioned before that you did get into acupuncture and some Chinese herbs. And how did that go for you?
Yeah, I'd say this was a huge part of my recovery, was not just learning how to slow down and cut out exercise and, start eating more, but I started to dive into Chinese medicine. I would go to acupuncture maybe every week or every other week. And I worked with a Chinese herbalist who kind of came up with a formula that helped to support my body throughout, these hormone changes and kind of remind it how to cycle again.
And I want to remind you guys, she is a physician's assistant in U.S. healthcare, as Western medicine as it gets. So the fact that you were going and looking at alternative things and not resistant to any one type or the other, be like, no, Western medicine is going to fix me, or no, only Eastern medicine is going to fix me. What I'm understanding is you could appreciate what was good in each.
Exactly. Yeah. I knew that I had the Western medicine in the back of my pocket if I really needed it.
Yeah.
I mean, the effects of low estrogen on a woman's body is really detrimental. It can not just have short-term consequences like all those symptoms I talked about before, but it can lead to osteoporosis. It can lead to cardiovascular disease or, neurodegenerative disorders and infertility. So I didn't want that for myself. Of course I didn't. So that was a driving factor as to why I wanted to get my period back naturally and know that I was capable of rebalancing my hormones and getting a cycle again. I didn't want to resort to hormonal birth control as the Band-Aid. As the Band-Aid approach, yeah. But I knew it was available. But I did want to seek alternative means that were going to support my body throughout the process rather than make it happen synthetically.
Yeah, synthetically, exactly. So that actually perfectly leads me to the next question. So as a woman in Western medicine, what really stands out to you about the holistic aspect of things?
Oh, yeah. I'd say that one of the biggest things that people go to the doctor for is chronic stress and the symptoms and diseases, dis-ease that results from chronic stress. It can come in so many different forms. Mine just happened to be a missing period, but it wasn't just a missing period. It was so many other myriad of symptoms that I was having. And a lot of these can be dismissed in Western medicine. When I went to the doctor, everything was compartmentalized to a point where I was seeing a dermatologist for my hair. I was seeing an endocrinologist for my thyroid. I was seeing a psychiatrist for my anxiety. And none of it was really getting to the root cause of anything. And
there's normally one root cause for all of these problems, right?
Yeah. I've learned that really just changing your lifestyle around and learning to slow down and understand why this is happening, I was able to really heal myself.
That's amazing. What would be your goals for your future, so like in medicine and as well as your personal health? What are you hoping to do and accomplish?
Yeah, so I mean, I love my job right now. I love working with cancer patients, and I love, the just every day of what I do. But I do have this real passion for helping other women going through their own hormonal struggles, especially through irregular missing periods. Just from my personal experience, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge of just what I've learned throughout the entire process that I would love to help other women who are going through this. So I can see myself getting into like functional nutrition and maybe becoming a health coach myself. And, that may be a couple of years down the road. I don't know, but I know that this is something that the things that I've learned from this experience, I will take with me for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And definitely everything happens for a reason. And one of the quotes that have gotten me through this whole year was, instead of focusing on, why is this happening to me, I started to reflect more and think, why is this happening for me? It really changes your perspective on any situation and helps you actually express more gratitude for any situation, whether it's positive or negative, and help you kind of stick in that direction of where you want to go.
I really agree with that. And I'm a huge believer in we're given these certain trials and tribulations so that for one part, we can learn how to get through them. Then for the other part, we can help other people who are going through them. So it's never for no reason. That's just what I think. So are you willing to leave our listeners with any sort of tips, suggestions, books, just for girls or women who are also going through the same thing? If your future self could come down from the sky and tell Anna that was going through that, what you know now, what would you tell her?
Yeah. Okay, well, I can group this into categories because for women who are actually struggling with a missing period due to hypothalamic amenorrhea, I recommend reading the book. It's more of a novel. It's like a Bible. It's called The No Period Now What book, and by Dr. Nicola Sykes. It's a guide to regaining your cycles and improving your fertility. I read this book from start to finish, and it was extremely helpful in just validating everything that I was going through. For women who are struggling maybe with irregular cycles or learning how to rebalance their hormones, they might be struggling with symptoms, but maybe not having a missing period altogether, I recommend the In the Flow book, and that is by Elisa Vitti.
We love Elisa Vitti on this show.
Wonderful. She dives into this like biohacking protocol for optimizing your hormones, your time, your relationships, digestion, mood, all just by thinking with your cycle. And then just from sharing with my friends about my experience, I have a lot of questions about, oh my gosh, like I want to go out with birth control, but I'm scared or I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to support my body throughout these changes. I wish that I knew the effects of birth control when I went off of it, so I could better support my body during that process. Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton.
Jolene Brighton, she's a great fertility doctor.
She's wonderful. She's an expert and functional doctor on understanding post-birth control syndrome. And this book, it gives you a step-by-step plan on how to take yourself off the birth control, support your body through the changes that it's going through when going off birth control. Whether it's you reading it before, after, during going off birth control, I highly recommend giving this one a read.
Awesome. And then I saw in your story, you posted this book that really caught my attention, Biohack Like a Woman.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, this is a good one. So now that I have recovered a period, before I was really focused on getting it back, I'm still interested on the science behind the menstrual cycle and how all of these biohacking tips and tricks that we're getting in our feeds is actually affecting women's hormones. Because we hear about cold plunging and intermittent fasting
But most of the stuff is still very much geared towards men and their ability to handle these stresses, right?
There's most of the studies out there done on men. So what I really enjoyed about this book in particular, everything that Aggie stands for, is understanding the woman biology and how it works. And so if you're really interested in diving into biohacking and optimizing your hormones, metabolism, and just health in general, and maybe you're struggling with irregular periods or the symptoms that come from PMS, this book really dives deep into how to best support yourself. And she goes between going from talking about blood sugar balance, elevated cortisol levels, cycle thinking. So each phase of your menstrual cycle, whether you're in the menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, luteal phase, how to eat and nourish your body, and also what types of movements and activity are best to support your body throughout those cycles. So,
and I don't know any woman that cycle syncing has not worked for. It's almost like when you do start aligning with, okay, like this week I'm supposed to be eating this and doing these exercises. Next week I'm doing something a little bit different. Your body catches on and things do seem to flow a little bit easier. You know, you're not boxed into this every day is the same type of vibe.
Yeah, and I'd say it would apply to all menstruating women, even if you're not menstruating, even if you're on the birth control pill. It's good to get into that cyclical rhythm so that you're just not doing the same thing every day and having those same expectations for yourself, that same go, go, go mindset every single day, and then just getting defeated when you're not able to, you know,
meet the same marks,
meet those same standards every single day. You can better understand your body and where it's at.
So, Anna, it was really amazing to have you on and give us such a comprehensive look and kind of give us also, you know, the Western medicine side of things, the holistic side of things, and how neither is wrong or completely right. We just have to pick and choose different aspects of each of them to help us on our journey, right? Like the lab testing versus the acupuncture and the herbs and stuff. So is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
No, I love that. Thank you so much for having me today. I would love to just say that having a positive outlook on even a sucky situation, if you're in one or you're going through a challenge, that was really like a key to, you know, my healing journey, was just focusing on like having a positive outlook on it, that things will get better, and like starting every day with gratitude. Like, what do I have to be grateful for? Appreciating my body for how it is and everything that it does to function, to let me enjoy and experience life, was like a huge drive for me wanting to improve my health. And I practice gratitude every day, and that is how I start my day every day. So if you're going through any sort of struggle, if you're going through any sort of challenge, whether it's with your own health or maybe a friend's health, just know that there is a way through it, and don't be afraid to reach out for support. And I've been very honest and open about my whole story, and I don't think that I would be in my shoes right now if I wasn't. So
yeah, well, that's awesome, Anna. Thank you. Where can our listeners find you if they want to follow along?
Yeah. So right now you can follow me on my Instagram. It's Anna_Herberger. If you want to DM me, message me if you have any questions, if you want any support or guidance or any other, you know, tips or tricks on how I recovered my period, then I'm happy to talk with you in more detail.
Thank you so much. That's going to be really awesome. So yeah, you guys follow Anna on Instagram, Anna_Herberger. We'll have that linked in the show notes too. But for now, I can't wait to see you again and talk some more. Obviously, this is going to be an ongoing journey for you. It's definitely not done. You're still working on it. But you've made such incredible strides in the past 15 months, starting off with really relinquishing that need for control, right? And just accepting your body as it needs to operate and what you need as a woman, how you need to eat differently, rest more, work out differently. And it just seems like a big experiment in surrender, which I think is a very feminine energy thing, is surrender.
Yes. I totally agree with you on that. Surrendering to the process, trusting yourself, and knowing that it's all going to be okay.
Right. Well, I love you, girl. Thank you for coming on the show. And you guys follow her on Instagram, and we will talk to you later. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Stellar Cycles Pod. You'll be able to download the free grocery guide in the link in the bio. Please give our podcast a rating and review if you enjoy it. If you'd like to share it and get the word out, please spread the good word about Stellar Cycles to your fellow women, and let's all elevate our lives together. Till next time, Stellar Cycles out.